Normally, our thinking about things is quite hopeless. We're never going to get anywhere with our everyday thinking about things. Not as far as anything really important goes. Not as far as our mental health goes, anyway. Our normal everyday thinking is no good at all. It's absolutely non-helpful. It leads us astray every single time. So that's too big a problem to get over. If it were possible that I could point to some small misunderstanding, some small matter which we need to be looking at a bit differently, then that's okay. We could proceed on that basis, and we could say, yeah, okay, here's a problem, but I can see where I've gone wrong. So I'm going to get things right. That would work if it weren't for the fact that everything we think is so completely, hopelessly, incredibly wrong. Wrong in a sense, wrong in the sense of not a type of wrong that can be corrected, but wrong in the sense that there's nothing we can ever do to correct it. Really, we should just give up on it. Not place any stock in it. Not to place the stock in it we normally put place in it. Maybe a tiny bit of stock in it from time to time as appropriate, but certainly not the amount of stock we do place in it, because that would be a recipe for endless confusion. So if we wanted to try and make the jump, it's kind of, I was tempted to say conceptual leap, but that isn't the right word, because we don't really want to leap from one concept to another totally different concept, which normally we'd think, wow, I'm actually leaving this old concept behind and I'm jumping to a completely different concept. So that's a really big thing. It's like, wow, I'm not mired in my crappy old concepts. I can leap like a grasshopper right up in the air and land somewhere else with another bunch of concepts. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about leaving behind all the concepts, because they're all the same, really. We might think the wonderful world of concepts contains all sorts of interesting things, but it doesn't really, because concepts are just concepts. And if you've seen one, you've seen them all. And they're not that great. There's no concept going to unlock the mysteries of life and death to us, that's for sure. But if we wanted to make the conceptual leap right out of concepts and maybe get a bit of perspective to not get hopelessly lost in our thinking, what we could do is try to make the kind of a jump or the kind of a leap whereby we see everything in a completely reversed way from what we normally see it. So this is the big reversal. And the big reversal isn't a particularly technically hard idea to understand. It just means we take a photographic image of everything we understand and we flip it around so it becomes the negative of what we had before. And then see where that leads us. See what difference it makes. So one way which we can do this, a good way to do this, is to take on board a particular idea, to which I'm indebted to Jeff from Negative Geography, the Negative Geography website. And the idea basically, and is something to the effect, probably more than to the effect, probably this is pretty close, is that we need to remember that it's not us who are intelligent, but the universe. And normally we have it the other way around, of course. We think that the universe is dumb, or maybe dumb isn't the right word, inert, passive, like clay is passive, just waiting to be molded to our specifications. So whatever genius that is in us, we are empowered to mold the clay, and that is how the clay is so great, because of us molding it. So we don't think the universe is that great really, or because we have this kind of contrast thing whereby we see ourselves as being intelligent and alive and conscious, and the universe we see as just our backdrop. Really, it's nothing more than a way for us to demonstrate how marvelous we are. It's nothing more than a way for us to show off, really, show our greatness by playing around with it and moulding it into these wonderful forms that we, through our genius, come up with. So this is a very self-flattering way of looking at things, obviously, which is the only way the self can ever see anything, is in a self-flattering way, by reference to it as if it is the gold standard. That's a self-centric modality, and the self-centric modality is the only modality we know, because we think living on the basis of the self-concept is the real proper way to live life. We don't actually think that because we assume it, and because we assume it, we don't think it. But if we could burrow deep enough into the detritus and debris of our long-forgotten assumptions, we'd find that right at the bottom of the pile, I'd say. The assumption that we're intelligent, not the universe. So, just for the sake of it, we can flip that over and try out the complementary way of looking at things, which is that we're not intelligent at all. We're kind of dumb, but we're kind of like bundles of reflexes that are waiting to be kicked off by external situations. The right situation will kick off a particular reflex, another situation will kick off another reflex, and we get by doing that, mostly. And as long as we're in a well-managed, predictable environment, it will look as if we are volitional beings possessed of great intelligence and all the rest of it. It'll look like that, but it won't be that, because that's kind of like a trick that we play on ourselves, that we want to imagine that we're intelligent and aware and all of that, instead of just being a bundle of associations, a bundle of reflexes. When X happens, I do Y, and then I identify with that reflex action. And instead of seeing it as just a mechanical reflex action, I see it as me being the cause, the causal one, the one who just decides I'm going to do Y, totally freely, totally volitionally, out of whatever, out of the depths of my own mysterious insight and genius. I certainly don't see it as that X happens and Y happens as a reflex, because if I did see that, there'd be no need for this. There'd be no place for this idea of myself as a causal agent, as an effective causal agent, as the instigator, the decider, the controller, all of these great things. There's no space for that if I'm just a reflex. X happens, it's in the outside world, then the behavior Y happens, So there's X and there's Y, but there's no need for this idea of self-efficacy, as Bandura calls it. Isn't it? Self-efficacy, there's no need to talk about self-efficacy when it's a reflex you're talking about. Reflexes aren't self-efficacious. They're just reflexes. It's just causality. And the funny thing about causality is there is the illusion of newness. X happens and then Y happens, and it's as if, look at Y, it's like really new, and I don't know, I've never seen it before, and where did this come from? That's great. But it isn't, because Y is implicit in X, because all linear transformations, all the transformations that occur are already inherent in the starting off point, and that's what a linear transformation is. That's why it's linear. It wouldn't be linear otherwise. It would be non-linear. It could be jumping off into who knows where, with no laws of logic to help us know where it's going to go or where it did go, or anything. So linearity creates the illusion of change, and we can piggyback on that illusion, hitch our carts to it, and develop a notion of self-efficacy, which is very important to us because it's the same thing as developing a notion of self-agenthood. Here am I in all my glory, not as a mere mechanical obeyer of rules. In fact, the rules tell me who I am, how I see the world, and everything. The rules tell me everything, absolutely everything. And if it's not in the rules, it can't exist. And so I am the rules. And so if I am the rules, there's only the rules. There's no agent. There's no cause. The cause is an illusion. The causa is an illusion. Free will is an illusion, etc., etc. So when we flip it over, we might think, okay, well, this is terrible. Here I am. I'm no longer the effective cause. I'm just a knot of reflexes bundled together in a rough and ready way to create a semblance of someone who can actually think for themselves, act creatively, and all the rest of it. And that doesn't sound very empowering. So then, quite possibly, you're going to think, what a terrible way to look at things. This is not empowering. This is a bummer. It's terrible because we have to feel bad about ourselves because we can't feel good on this basis. We can't get empowered on this basis as being efficacious. But the thing is, of course, there's no point getting to feel good about ourselves if the basis for feeling good is an illusion, because that's going to end in tears. So to lose that is not, we're as well off. We're better off to lose that. Thank God we've lost that, because that's just a recipe for tears, lots of upset. But we don't want to go feeling good about things on the basis of an illusion. We might say, oh, but it feels good. But no, if it's on the basis of illusion, it's going to turn sour. But maybe just because it doesn't empower this false idea we have of ourselves, if it's based on the truth, we could say, well, if it's based on the truth, it must be wholesome in some way, because the truth has that quality. Good things come out of the truth. They might be hard to hear, but in the long run, the truth will set you free, as Jesus said. Believing in unreal things because of the euphoria creating quality of unreal things might feel good in the short term, but instead of setting you free, it will keep you captive forever. But you do get a short-term burst of euphoria at the beginning of that, so maybe it's worth it. And it is worth it if the euphoria is all you're looking at. Obviously it's not worth it really. Is a short burst of euphoria worth a lifetime of enslavement to the mechanical mind? Especially when that short burst of euphoria is going to be counterbalanced by bursts of dysphoria, because there's no up without a down. So really, is the package that good? Has it got that much to say for it? Not really, obviously. So maybe all of this, even though we're familiar with it, it's not so great anyway, because it's never done us any good at all. So why not have a look at the flipped over, the reversed way of seeing things. So the reversed way of seeing things turns out to be pretty neat, really, because if I'm confronted by a problem, instead of thinking I can fix it, the answer's in me, I just have to try and try again and get it to work out right, which is what we normally do. And what we can do that with small problems, small little problems like why isn't the toaster working? Oh, maybe I forgot to plug it in, or that kind of thing. That's fine. I can be efficacious as far as broken toasters are concerned, as long as it's not a big problem, obviously. As long as it's only a small trivial problem. But with big problems, life's big problems, in that case, if the answer isn't in me, because I really haven't got a clue, because I'm not intelligent, but just a bunch of reflexes, and reflexes are never intelligent. Intelligence implies more than a reflex. It's more than just looking it up and, what do I do here? So there's something happened, what do I do here? That's not intelligence. That's dumbness. Mechanical dumbness. It's not even second best to intelligence, but in the absence of consciousness, we have to make do on rules, as Jung says, even though it's not a direct quote. He said rules, I think Jung said rules are always a substitute for consciousness, which is the same thing. So anyway, so here I am faced with a really big problem, and I'm not intelligent, the universe is. So what do? I let the universe be intelligent, and I let the universe guide me. So I stay open to help from the outside. And straight away, when we say this, we might think of saints or angels or God or something like that. But it's not like that. It's more like that isn't. We're not talking about some lofty supernatural presence that's going to reach down and help us if we pray hard enough. That in itself is a kind of a glorification of the ego, to be asking for help and receiving help from on high. It's not like that. It's our true nature, if we could see it, is not this bundle of reflexes, but is the universe, is the everything. So really it's us, but we're not getting in our own way by identifying with this concrete identity, this bundle or conglomerate of reflexes as being the only source of all intelligence, because it's not a source of any intelligence at all. It's only good for very, very simple, trivial things. So then when I'm clearly aware of this, I stop identifying with that knot of reflexes, which is not intelligent. It's not aware, it has no awareness. It's all A, therefore B, and there's this hallucination that there is awareness there, but there's no awareness there. And there's no existence there either, because a knot or bundle or conglomerate of reflexes doesn't exist. All of that stuff is thought. All of that stuff is an abstraction from what does exist, which is the flux, the flow. So we can say the flux, the flow, that's what's intelligence. That's what exists. Nothing else exists. What else could exist outside of the flow or the flux? Some little thing that is out there somewhere that isn't part of the flux and the flow is just sitting there like a kind of fixed vantage point. That's the ego. That's not a real thing. It's an arbitrary vantage point which we take and get trapped in. So what this means is that we get helped by existence itself, by life itself, when we're not overcome with hubris, when the ego isn't convinced that it is the source of all right answers and that it is very clever. So really, although the ego will complain about being called dumb, not intelligent, unconscious, say, hey man, you're disempowering me, saying all these things to me. So although the ego will complain, actually when we do thoroughly and effectively disempower the ego, the self-construct, then everything's fine, because everything starts working as it should do. Everything starts working harmoniously, as long as we're not elevating this little bundle of reflexes to a higher station than it ought to be. When we do that, when we indulge in the hubris of the self-concept, then nothing works out for us. So we got the hubris, but everything's shit. So it's kind of take your pick. What would you prefer? Okay, thanks for watching.